That would be a good, I think, segue to mention a book that I had the opportunity of reading pretty recently, and that's Alan Strange's book on the doctrine of the spirituality of the church in
Hmm.
the Ecclesiology of Charles Hodge, which is a fascinating book. And Strange focuses specifically on how the Presbyterian Church in the 19th century, in the years leading up to, during, and immediately after the Civil War, were struggling with that doctrine and how it relates to the church and the church's relationship specifically to the state and the union in particular, and whether or not the church should support the union. And it's a helpful book, not only historically for understanding the history of the doctrine of the spirituality of the church and the Presbyterian Church in the USA in particular, but just for understanding the bigger picture of what is the mission of the church, what has Christ called the church to do, and how does the church relate to culture, society, to the state, and so on. It's a very helpful book.
That's fascinating. I loved reading that book myself, and I did find it to be a challenging book, but it's the kind of book you could read many times over and think about all the implications and things therein. One thing I remember from reading that book was his treatment of the history regarding the Gardner Spring Resolution, which had
Hmm.
to do with, I believe, slave ownership and whatnot, and whether the Presbyterian Church was going to make a stand or discuss whether that was permissible, especially in the South. And so that was called to mind recently because I just finished reading Jamar Tisby's book, The Color of Compromise, which is another book that I enjoyed reading, but another book that challenged me, and a book that I was constantly having a conversation with and writing in the margins as I read that and wrestled with many of the ideas and suggestions. So that's another book, a brand new book. That one's published by Zondervan, just came out a couple weeks ago. But Alan Strange, that you can find our interview with him in the archives, and that's well worth listening to.
Yeah, two interviews actually on CTC.
That's right.
One before the book was published and
That's
one
right.
after the book was published.
Yeah, one was more largely focusing on a Mid-America Journal article, I think, but it was on the same subject, the stuff that's in the
correct.
book. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I am reviewing the book for New Horizons, and that should come out very soon. And it's a review article. And I'm also writing a review article for Ordained Servant too, and I'm focusing there specifically on the eschatology of Charles Hodge and how that affected his doctrine of the spirituality of the church.